Lasts.
Yeah, I got mine when I was in high school for a trip that we took up to Cayman Islands.
You would want. I mean, you would definitely want to do a refresher because
Right,
remember
even if you're
anything about
certified.
certification is like.
That's a great
But
question.
you would absolutely want to do a refresher class.
Yeah, I imagine 15 years ago. But you just
Like it's been a year since we did it, and I would want to do a refresher.
it's just been doing it like the last 2 years or something.
But yeah, I mean, just pretty much last year was the So.
Kyle will do it. There's no way we're going to talk to consumer. Kyle, way too much of it's good.
Yeah, it's
It's one of it's been his passion ever since he was a kid.
I love it. I will stick to what I have. I will stick to swimming pools and swimming training. Other places.
I was fascinated about it when I was in college and I never did it, but my friends did. So I sort of like hang out with them and hear all the stories that they did.
I would be interested to see like the lakes, but I'm not sure if I'm doing it.
Oh, well, Trent.
See, I feel like the other way around.
Really?
Yeah.
I know a bunch of people who love doing it in the ocean and never would do it in a lake.
Basically, yeah.
Explain it to me.
Because I mean, if you're in a lake, like, what are you gonna see?
That's so real.
Like, most of what it is in the lake is just you're just sort of there for the being underwater, I guess. But like,
The visibility is often worse, right?
well, what's that?
The visibility is often worse than like
Yeah,
in some place.
it can be. Yeah.
I think I could turn it around and you can see if you're in the ocean. You know, it's pretty much my anxiety.
Yeah.
Where it's
Like, this was definitely like the end. And there were times where it's just like you gotta like just
And there's
controlling yourself.
why I never did it was it's the three-dimensionality. There's this idea that okay, there's nothing in front of me that's scary. Okay, there's another 270 degrees that I can't see. Or
Yeah.
Jaws is speaking up on me.
I mean, there was a couple dives we did where there was sharks. So, I mean, they're not the kind of sharks that are
They have
gonna
a lot of kinds of sharks.
mess with you, but they're also just kind of like this shark could totally mess with me if you wanted to. Or,
if you decide to just be a dick.
Yeah.
And he was like,
I think I'd be more afraid of a seal. There you go.
you what?
I think I'd be more afraid of a leopard seal than a shark.
Yeah.
What app are you in there?
The triggerfish.
This is
the one
Substance
we did.
Designer. This is what I'm going to be talking about tonight. It's
Triggerfish. Yeah.
kind of like a precursor tool that you'd use for like 3D textures, like procedural graphics in general. You can also use it to make like filters and materials that you then use in like Substance Painter and other 3D tools. So it's like making the filters and tools that you would then use in like an actual like program to texture stuff.
But it'll.
I'm gonna do kind of my sales pitch for why it's useful if you don't come, especially if you don't come from a technical background. It's very handy dandy as a way to actually learn kind of graphics operations.
Is it free?
No, it is decidedly not free. That's why it's
the first word up there is
first word up there is Adobe. This is
Well, I've never.
a one-time purchase version though.
they actually
All of this, well, some of this, I don't know if all of them, but most of the Substance programs, as a part of like when they got bought out by Adobe, in their agreement had a thing where they're like, we will still have to have like a one-time payment version available somehow. So I know Painter, Designer, Modeler, I don't know if any of their other ones are, but all of those three Substance tools you can buy as like a one-time purchase on Steam, and you just have it, and you get updates through the year that you purchase it. So like if you purchased it now, you get updates through till end of 2026.
did go through Painter because that's the stuff that I'm interested
Yeah.
Well, it's just
Yeah. So that's actually neat.
I think it's a worthy investment. I'm biased.
in. The top stuff, obviously, very hard.
This is like.
It's like 150 to 175.
It's actually way less.
It's not bad. It's like it's a purchase, capital P purchase, but it's like the amount of time it has saved me for doing other things, like the amount of value I've gotten out of it, I think is well worth the difference.
And other question here, I'll save it for the talk so that you listen to your
Third, feel free to ask those questions again if there's a lull in the Q&A section as well.
and you know, it's stuff like
Sweet.
Totally, I can totally hear you straight now.
Okay, perfect.
Took me a second to get through to disconnect with here.
Cool. Gotta get. I realized my one font that I use is like a icon like motif library. I don't actually have one, or I guess I do. So let's see.
Get in the house. Yeah.
Oh, I guess it's a
Depending, you might have to start
like that.
Yeah, that might be my problem. Yeah. And if it's only this one that's having that issue, I'm probably just gonna hold on.
Right. So when I went to engineering school,
There you go.
still about numbers. So, yeah. So nobody says. That's what we had to.
Is there any way to dim like or turn off just this front row? Is it like pretty flexible with how much?
Yep.
Way too much respect.
Half the time I forget. I get up here, I'm doing setup, and then we just start.
Partially, it's like
Do like please. Purple.
I don't know.
Forgot that was playing, but that's good to know that it's.
Sorry.
Oh wait, it might be just the because Mark has like some standby music
man,
that
that's what-
plays by default, so it might be that. But again, like if computer audio isn't coming through, that will not affect this presentation unless Rob is surprised to actually like any place of audio.
Yeah.
And
I wasn't really paying attention. I'm like, there's music playing.
yeah, maybe that's what. Probably so. Oh boy, well, we'll have to. That'll be extra talk. I'm talking about the pre-step substance designer, but we should probably crack up Painter or whatever. What's the discourse with Painter? Yeah.
I wonder if I can use Substance Designer on
On Mac.
on
Linux. I believe it supports it. Let's check their Steam page.
Switch to Geico.
It's my only internet presence that isn't consistent Scrimmus. Did that in middle school, and I'm too charmed by it to change it.
That's awesome.
Where do we see this?
The website.
It never really is. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Let me install it via Steam.
Let's go.
How much ancient? Like
I
a
believe
lot.
Yes.
I it's like 150, 175.
Maybe $1.
Yeah. It's like my goal will be to get maybe one person to purchase one of the substance tools.
Yeah.
And I'm not even sponsored by them, but that's gonna be my goal. Because I think it's
I'll add it to my purchase.
right. I feel like you will like it's the stuff I'm gonna be doing. I think is gonna be adjacent to a lot of stuff you do through graphics talk. Just a lot of it will just be like the process of setting up like parameters and whatnot to like edit within a texture. Like it end of the day, it ends up being a lot more static with how you're using it.
Yeah.
The parameters are mostly useful in like another tool that supports like substance, like substance cleaner. You can like make materials and filters in here, like operations that you can then put in. It's just like an immediate quick automatic thing on any model in Substance Painter. And then Unity and Unreal, I think both have like a Substance plugin where you can use the like parameters that you expose here, like in the same material graph. I've heard mixed opinions on how usable that can be, but yeah, it's really good for like quick iterations, I think.
Yeah. I know a lot of folks do not want to write a shader to do.
Yes. Yeah. That's like this is what made me learn. I'm gonna repeat this again when I talk, but like this is what made me actually understand like the pixel processing that's happening for like the different Photoshop blend modes and stuff. Like, yeah, it's been useful for learning how to learn more.
There's the painter and then there's 3D modeler.
Okay, Modeler is the other one. Yeah, that one actually is one of the few things that I'm like, that used to be a feature within Substance Designer, like before they got bought by Adobe, and then they have made it a lot better, and it's like a very robust tool now, but it's now separate and is a different software to purchase. They have like all of their workflows that you can do for like rendering and everything. You have like, but that if you get the like subscription version of it, then you get like their stager, like render space.
One thing that they should like accidentally
Oh, so easily.
like
Yeah.
it's a $200.
Yeah, and they have their logos.
Yeah.
But they're so small.
It's like I can actually I'm so yes. Like, oh, I'm so
Yeah, right? And then it's like, well, shit, I guess this is what I'm doing with my life now. None of what I was originally looking at. Yeah,
that could be
that could be vastly improved upon.
I could go that the disc.
Yeah.
But it turns out
It's here.
actually good odds. Solve for money. Honestly.
Go on.
Well, if you get the use it's a thing called. Well, that's done for it. Right.
You think?
So we're on what's up, road? This is what West Main, right? So
You're not seeing him arrive yet.
You're
Not seeing him arrive.
I'm just I searched for the tool and there's like 3 things that are on like look very sensitive.
You're done. Right.
Placed. Voted off the island. I like know that this bit is it, but every time you say it, I forget about the bit for like the first 6. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. Still is close. My drum kit. Although you would be sitting
It'd be like a sixth of your total views table.
You get like a really
Be like a
it's probably the closest view of San. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh, it just said that on so. Yeah, it's picking up me. Yeah. I'm listening to myself right now. I know.
Mains. Okay.
These little things were all.
I'll just hang on this. So for now. Have a costume change as well, so I can shift from presenter Sam to from announcement Sam to presenter Sam. I think it's gonna be a real hoot and holler. Okay, yeah, that's me.
That one, no.
I should double check as well. Make sure that our camera is being charged. Yeah. Can we do like plug through stuff with there anything that we want to
I'm still saying that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So you can plug that. Okay.
It's like I know really not.
So, all right, party animals. I think this is all of the people that we have tonight. So let's get rocking and rolling.
Gonna get started.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome in, y'all.
Thanks.
Welcome to our. You're so welcome, Dale. Welcome to our game dev meeting of the month.
Yay.
You made it. You did it. Congrats. You found us. The support of operations for the night. We're going to do intro announcements, open space for community plugs if anybody has anything they want to shout out. Then we'll have our presentation of the night, some mysterious individual. And then we'll go, whoever is interested and available, to 2D or to Station 280. A lot of twos in our venues. We are at 2D HQ. We will be at 2D Station 280. 280. We see where the the words. So, any first-time attendees here? Welcome in. Dude. Welcome in, friends. Your missions. This guy right. This guy here. He's been here a couple times. I know. I'm messing with you, bragging on you. Well, our mission, people who did not raise your hands, is to introduce yourself and have some sort of brief, lovely conversation with these two new faces. If you've already done so, congrats. Your assignment is checked off. If you're interested in any of our information, we have a safe event policy. You can find it at igdatc.org/policies. This is an organization that is entirely volunteer run. We have a volunteer board that leads our programming and our general organization decisions. If you have questions, concerns, problems, anything like that, you can reach out to us at igdatwincities@gmail.com. Find us on the Discord either by our role at IGDATC board, or if you need to talk privately, you can DM any of us. If you're interested in joining this cool photo set of awesome people, we have elections every March that run for 2-year terms. We also, send me your new profile picture. We also have volunteers. So if there's anything else you're interested in doing for the organization, say you're interested in running your own event, but you don't want the commitment of being on the board, you are entirely welcome to give us ideas. Anything that you would be interested in contributing to help the org grow or improve, let us know, and you can join this set of awesome people and more who have not sent me photos. If you are a volunteer and help out with doing stuff here, and you're not up here and you want to be, send me a photo, and we'll make that happen. We have so many events, you guys. Let me talk about it real quick. We got jam, most of them occurring on Wednesday, 6:30 to 9:30. We've got jam night every first Wednesday of every month. At Noble Robot, it is a no agenda, bring something to work on and chat with other creatives. Simple as that. It's a great space if you've got something you got to get done, but you want to see some people or get some questions answered. Second Wednesday is our Game Dev meetup. You've found it, you've done it, congratulations. That is here at 2DHQ, Industry and Community Presentations. Every third Wednesday, we've got Twin Cities Playtest. That's next week, 1 week away from now, also at Noble Robot. If you have a game in any state where somebody can do something on a computer and it happens, or board games as well, we're non-exclusive, bring it next week to Noble Robot. Reach out to Mark LeBroy on Discord for more details. Mobile games. Ooh,
We had one of those last
week. One games? Oh, cool.
Hey Mark, what's your Discord handle?
It's just the name.
At Mark LaCroix on Discord. If it's in any state, please bring it in. Any feedback is always important. And if you don't have anything you feel confident enough to bring, show up anyways and play test some of these awesome games. And then every fourth Wednesday, we have MN VR and HCI. VR, AR, HCI special interest group every fourth Wednesday at REM5 Studios. We also have other events on other days. Every third Saturday is our Women in Games gathering, 6:30 to 8:30 at Noble Robot. It is a no-agenda networking and social event open to anybody who identifies with the label woman. You are welcome. We usually have pies, and we usually go get dinner. Those are the only two semi-concrete things in the agenda.
What do you like to eat?
And we love pie. And then Game.Wave every second Thursday, which is tomorrow, 6:30 to 8:30 at the Hennepin Technical College Audio Production Department. It's deep dives, discussions on anything related to game audio. Rob, what do we got next?
We're gonna play Ball X-Bid. I don't know if you're familiar with that game, but it's fairly. Ball.
Yeah, you have to gesture the X.
Ball Pit. And we're gonna play that. Hopefully we'll country. And then we'll talk about it. Just like some conclusions. You know, just about things.
Started being designed and released it. Vice versa.
Stuff like that.
Cool. Super exciting. If you guys want to add any other recurring events to this list for me to hype up and talk about, get in touch with one of our board members and let us know. You can find more specifics about each of these events at the events info on our Discord server, either in the events tab or in the channel for each events info. We also have another one, surprise.
What?
This is a new event spearheaded by one of our new board members, Andy, at fifth Wednesdays. This is kind of a crowdsourced premise that we've formalized into a real thing. Basically, every fifth Wednesday, which is very rare, we do one-off event proposals submitted by the community, determined by Andy, and then whatever it is, whether that's a casual hangout at a bar, a co-working night, just like jam night,
What? No.
things like that.
Yeah.
We haven't codified that yet, but it's dissuaded. Anything like that, we'll make it happen. And this coming fifth Wednesday, July 29th, we have Game Study Book Club at Minneapolis Central Library in the Doty boardroom.
I mean, is there
Sam.
a signed book?
There is. Sam, would you like to tell us more about it?
Almost like my flash to the camera.
Yeah.
I've talked about you.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is our like inaugural fifth Wednesday thing. This will not remain the fifth Wednesday thing because obviously the idea with fifth Wednesday is to rotate and do something new every time. But hopefully, with enough interest, Studies Book Club will become our regular recurring thing. But for this first one, we've got a game studies book, kind of a classic, older one from like the 70s, called The Well Played Game by Bernie DeKoven. It is all about what it means to play well. And so there's a lot about play, a lot of it in the context of like playing outside, playing with your friends. There's not a whole lot of it that's specifically about video games because it was kind of written before video games were a super huge deal. But there's a lot of it that is applicable. There is a good amount of it that is also very applicable to those of us making games as well, which is something that we're going to try to focus on in particular. If you have not already, it's the 29th, so you still have a few weeks to read the book, and it's not that long. It's a little over 100 pages. It's not like super tiny text or whatever. You can do it in the time that is left. Also, if that is a big commitment to you, there is a PDF of just chapter 5, which is the one called Changing the Game, which is the one that's most relevant to actually designing games and making them and modifying them and iterating on them and all the things that like we might want to take away as game makers from this book. So yeah, we're going to be in the Minneapolis Central Library, new location. Haven't been there before. Hope it works out. We're going to be in a big room, so I'm going to need to see a lot of you showing up. Okay, you got to fill the space out. There will be snacks of some.
I might recommend using the new carpool concept.
Check out the carpooling channel.
It's trying to pump the Minneapolis Central Library.
Yes, yes. I hear it's difficult to park there, so I would recommend carpooling. But yeah, if you have any questions, come find me, come talk to me. If you are having trouble finding a copy of the whole book and you're trying to read it, also let me know and I can help you figure that out. Yeah, Game Studies Book Club. Well played game. Come join us. Eat some snacks. Talk about game studies.
Yeah. So much, Sam, for kicking off our first Fifth Wednesday. I will not be able to be there because I will be on a trip, but I will be participating and giving my thoughts in advance because I'm so excited about this.
Sweet.
Cool. Quick shout out, thank you to our sponsors who host our events in their spaces. They donate their venues to us so charitably. So if they align with your business interests or needs, donate your business to them. We are also sponsored by Nice Games Alliance. This is the nonprofit arm of our community that funds our initiatives. If you've gotten any value out of the community and you have the means to do so, a donation of any size is always appreciated. It's tax deductible. You can do one time or recurring, and it can only go towards furthering the mission statement, which we have on our website at nicegames.org. This camera. Okay, we're back. Amazing. Okay, announcements. This is going to be in our slides till the end of the year. If you've released a game this year, tell us about it. If you know someone in the community or in the area who has done so, take a picture and make them scan this QR code. We want to compile sort of a list of all the games that are released in our state and community every year to kind of give praise to all of the amazing developers in this area, show recognition. Last year at our end of the year holiday party, we did a showcase of all of those games that were released. And for people who were showing up in person, everybody got a little token, little medal congratulating them on releasing a game in 2025. So use this QR code, send it to people who you know have released games.
Professor Schultz, please submit by November our game meeting here in November, please, for my sake at least.
Good to have a head count so we know how many of those lovely, lovely tokens to make. Another thing coming up, you guys, there's so many awesome things happening this summer. August 15th through 16th, if you haven't heard about it already, we are hosting an event called Junction Jam in conjunction with a couple other Midwest game dev community organizations. So that weekend, it's Saturday, Sunday, we'll be getting on a train to Chicago in the morning, starting on a game jam game with people that we come in with or people that we meet on the train or people joining from other routes. We have one train coming in from Minneapolis-St. Paul and one coming in from Kansas City that'll pass through St. Louis, both meeting in Chicago in the late afternoon, early evening. You'll work on a game jam game on the way there, inspired by Train Jam, if anybody's familiar. Get to Chicago, meet up with the Chicago folks that have already been there all morning, jamming on their own games. Have a little celebration, mingle with people, hang out as much as you like, or lock in on your game as much as you like. Then the next day, we'll meet up for breakfast, do a little bit more work time, and then say our goodbyes and get back on the train, head back to our destination cities. And you have to finish your games by the time you get back to where you started. So that is at junctionjam.org. Some details about this. Basically, everything is ad hoc for how it's run this year. So you'll purchase train ticket, lodging, event ticket. You go to junctionjam.org, and the website will walk you through each of those steps in more detail. Basically, the departing August 15th in the morning, returning 16th in the evening. We get back pretty late, but that's a lot of time to work on a Game Jam game. Lodging, we had a cutoff for this group rate discount that was originally July 1st, but we were able to get it extended to July 15th, which is super awesome and exciting because hotels are kind of booking up due to the Chicago Air and Water Show, which will also be happening that weekend. Who knows? We'll be near Air and Water Show. I don't know anything about it, but I know it's a thing that's happening that same weekend.
They don't even have trains.
I know. So, like, what's the point? Forget about that.
Wow, it's planes, trains.
Yeah, yeah. But these will be pretty good rates compared to any other hotels in the area. And if you book before July 15th, you can get those super awesome discounted rates. And then we have an event ticket for the actual little get together party. It'll be at that link on Eventbrite. That'll also be at junctionjam.org. Cool. And last thing, 2DCon is coming up, also in August. August 23rd. The organization that hosts us here for our game dev meeting is the organization that runs this. If you have not heard of it before, it's a gaming oriented Minnesota's largest gaming event. That's a good way to put it. Yes. Concise.
Also, one of the best things in Minnesota, as voted on by, was it Star Tribune?
Star Tribune, yeah, we actually right next to it. Tell them.
They're
Look it up. It's pretty cool.
2 years in a row.
Yeah. So that is coming up. You can go to 2dcon.net and purchase tickets.
Yep.
And if you are free and available and are would be interested in helping staff a table for our community at 2DCon next month, reach out to send a message to one of our board members or put something in the general chat. Yeah, basically, if you're down to be at a table for some or all of a day or the whole weekend, if you're completely free and you got the energy, and just to people, introduce yourself, like talk about the community and things that we put on, hand out flyers, talk with game devs, things like that. If you're interested in something like that, let us know and we'll get you set up. Trying to just get a list of people who would be interested and available so we can figure out what a schedule might look like. Cool. Now, community plugs. This is an open space. If anybody's got anything they would like to shout out, anything on this list or beyond, I already see Josh is ready.
All right, so I'm gonna have to fill out that form that was just shown because Dice Gun Commando is releasing on July 24th. But Dice Gun Commando is at Twin Cities Playtest next week. Yeah. Showing at 2DCon proper in August and at the Mall of America event from 2DCon also on July 25th, the day after release.
You're too busy.
I am busy. I'm looking for as much help promoting this game as possible. So if you know anyone that streams this game, anyone that is writing about games, basically anyone that wants to promote games, send them to me. I am very interested in getting in contact with them.
Oh yeah. How?
Speaking of, the same way, actually.
Yes.
2DCon is taking over the Mall of America Rotunda the 25th and 26th of July. It's literally just a preview of 2DCon in general. It's covering, it's going to have live entertainment, a panel, we're going to have some indie games there, we're going to have tournaments. It's literally just a small preview of what 2DCon itself is.
Hell yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
July 25th and 26th.
Super exciting. Anybody else got something? Like 1, 2? 1, 2? Go for it.
So it's been out for a couple weeks now, but my game, Stunted Gravity, has a demo that's out on Steam right now. It's a futuristic stunt driving game, so if that sounds like anything you'd be interested, please try it out.
Yeah.
Stunted gravity.
It's pretty cool.
So last month I talked about my Holy Adventure Pack that I released. I am very close to 100 downloads on free pack. So if you haven't downloaded that yet, help me reach the milestone. 100. 100.
Load it.
Uh,
An inch. Rapid Frost the third. That inch. There it is.
I'm
But
pulling
that,
it up.
That QR code is not. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
You can find it. You know it's
Yeah.
but
Itch.io, Robert Frost III.
yeah. Or I.
Yes.
Sure.
Wow.
Right.
But some you'll get a ton of examples of the whole system of 700 plus sounds that you can purchase on Itch. But the free demo, you can check it out on YouTube, or you can just download it. And like I said, help me out get those numbers up. It's very generous, so yeah, check it out.
Right on.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Anybody else got something?
Let me back up.
Let's go.
Okay. This is like my events month. I'm doing stuff. On the 18th, week from Saturday, I'm doing outdoor games again. I did it once a couple months ago. We have getting more people come out. We're going outside. We're going to the park. We're going to play games. Bunch of folk games that are all good for like a big group of people. A range of activity levels. Some of them will involve running around. A lot of them will involve sitting down, like sitting in a circle and doing stuff like that. It's great. It's a lot of fun. Show up. And also, if you are coming to book club, Game Studies book club, just because synergy is cool. The book we are reading and some of the games we will be playing are written slash designed by the same guy. So you can sort of consider it like homework or
Maybe that could
different practice.
Perhaps
Like one extra donut if
Yeah.
you show up. Yes.
What part, what time, and where can I find you online?
I am gonna post a link with all those questions, with all those in the Discord channel for this. But Theodore Worth Park, July 18th, 2 to 5 p.m. And then we're going to go to Moon Hills Brewing afterwards. So if you just want to go outside for a little bit and then drink beer, also great event for that. So, yeah, so, hope to see you there.
Oh, yeah. Alrighty. Anybody else? Going once. Going twice. Hey, let's hear it.
Hey everybody, I'm Brock. I'm on the events committee for a sister group called Nice Moves. My goal is to have this group mingle with that group because there's a lot that I feel like we can learn from each other. They're mostly animators. I feel like this group is heavy on programmers. Maybe you guys need artists. They want to work on things. There's also just a cool space to meet other people. Earlier this month we had a panel on Blender. So if you want to learn more about Blender or like different workflows, you can do that there. Got some cool stuff lined up for talking about. It's that.
It's a really, really cool group.
It's really,
More or less towards the Minnesota Electronic Theater,
yeah.
which is a wonderful thing too.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming up back in December. But anyway, it's a great group. All those cool people doing both.
Yes.
I am usually, yeah, I'm usually busy on Thursdays, but I was able to make it to that last the Blender panel, which was super awesome. It was really cool, you guys. I can't recommend it enough.
I will find out.
It's usually on like the second or third Thursday of the month, I feel like.
Almost always on Thursdays.
We were going to move it, but it now sounds like our conflict is no longer a conflict, so we'll let you know.
Okay.
And Brock,
Well,
the Minnesota Discord, IGT Discord,
Yeah.
are you Godzilla or the?
I should Oh, I am. I should be Brock Runner. That's my fault. Sorry about that.
Work.
And your website is it's really good.
Thanks.
Hell yeah. Yeah. Check out Nice Moves. They've got really cool events and really cool people. We're trying to promote more cross pollination. One of the people on that Blender panel was actually like, they had come to a couple IGDA events before. I hadn't met them, but they were like, oh, yeah, I've been out to a couple of those. So we got to get them to come here, and we got to get more of us over there. It's going to be great, you guys. Hell yeah. Anybody else got any cool news to share for the good of the cause? Going once, going twice, sold. Alrighty. We've got some things that are recurring announcements. Jam, this is an event that me and my friend over there, John, run. It's a monthly 48-hour remote asset jam where you just show up and make one asset, whatever that looks like for your skill set. It could be sound effects, it could be songs, it could be models, 2D graphics, mechanics for a thing you're working on, something completely brand new, an excuse to just keep fresh with or learn a new tool that you've been interested in. We got a theme every month that you can base it as rigidly or as loosely as you want on. And it runs from the first Friday, normally the first Friday of every month, 6 p.m. Friday to 6 p.m. Sunday. But due to the holiday weekend, we delayed it to this coming weekend. So this Friday, join us in the Discord for this month's Jam. Got a QR code right there. I'll also send a link in the chat at some point afterwards. Actually, John, can you send a link to the Discord?
It's already in there.
Thank you, Keith. Phenomenal.
Kieran is
On it. Locked and loaded. But
I have all of them in a notepad.
we appreciate it so much. So it means you've got 2 more days to submit something for our off-season theme and get a shout out in our opening announcements. The theme for that is pink. So if you join, make something pink, and submit it before Friday, we'll give you a shout out. I don't know about that. We've also got a cool local podcast, Nice Games Club. Game dev conversations and related topics. Some of our local community members run this. It's pretty nice. Game jams, guest interviews, roundtable discussions on game dev topics, and more. Check it out at nicegames.club.
Okay, I'm also going to say the right-hand side of that is not correct.
Yeah.
We are new episodes now,
Yes.
as it is after March.
Also, replaying as well.
That's okay.
What?
Why?
We're flying. We'll fix it up for next one.
It doesn't matter. I'm just going to delete that.
Yeah.
That's,
What's up?
We had Mir Savat on to talk about the job market. It was not as depressing as you might imagine. The episode, the job market is.
Hey, check it out. Seems like club. Cool. All right, you guys. It's time to welcome in our mysterious presenter of the night. It's me. Hi. Yeah. Let me switch over to my other slide deck.
glad you have it.
You guys get to see. I know. I was like, I got to do a costume change.
Love the notepad. So good.
I'm going to be talking about Substance Designer and doing a demo with it. So, I sure hope so. That's the zinger. That's really good. This is going to be a pretty open format, kind of flexible thing. So feel free to chime in. We'll do back and forth Q&A. If you have any questions as I'm doing things, feel free to shout it out. I'll just chat. So this is me. Hi. This is also me. Hi. My name is Sam Baseman. I'm a arts educator and 3D artist for video games and other things. Do a quick breeze through of stuff in my portfolio. Got yeah. I make fun 3D things. My main skill set, it focuses in environment art, so that's all the barrels, boxes, crates that you see in video games, all those background assets, things like that. Fancy things, crazy things. I'm a big fan of patterns. So, this predisposes me to being a fan of Substance Designer, a tool for procedural art and things like that. Also do graphic design and a pretty broad range of stylized versus like realistic art styles. I feel like I enjoy the technical side of learning new tools, so it's cool to experiment and try and replicate existing styles. That's a quick breeze through of some stuff that I have done. You'll see more in just a minute. So I'm going to be talking about Substance Designer. This is specifically one of a suite of tools in Adobe Substance's Substance 3D Toolkit. Substance Designer is a node-based visual like program for making texture, procedural art, textures, 2D graphics, and more. The relation it has, because you've probably heard people say substance and you don't know if they're talking about painter, like paint and models, or if they're talking about materials or actual physical modeling, or if they're talking about something else. But the relation between designer and painter is basically designer is the tool that you use to make your textures, your materials. It's a non-destructive workflow. You can also make filters and other things that you can then send to other programs like Substance Painter, where you then use them in Substance Painter to paint or texture specific models using those materials and filters as tools, basically. So this is kind of the precursor to that in the workflow. Some example use cases, if you've seen any like cool like material sphere anywhere online, it's probably something that was made in Substance Designer. It's not a guarantee, but 90% of the time, I feel like that is the case. Also, a lot of those brushes and alphas that you see in, like I know Photoshop is a similar concept, basically, like editable brushes where you've got different parameters that can be adjusted. But especially in things like Substance Painter, it's kind of that idea of you've got these like stamps and other things that you can use in other programs and edit aspects of in that program. And it's used for on the filter side of things. If you've got something that your program that you're looking at just doesn't provide, like say you want something that can do like a nice quantized sort of like tune shaded like material kind of look to it. This is an example of a way I've used it before where you can make filters and just use them in another program and work very quickly with it. So things I'm going to focus on before I jump in, basics of just like the UI, what it looks like, how you navigate and work in this tool, and then some overviews of things I've made and how I use it for like 3D game textures and then 2D graphics. Can kind of, based on interest, can ebb and flow between those or focus on more if there's more interest. So if you have questions, that will help me gauge what people are interested in. And there are also other miscellaneous things that this tool is really handy for that I would love to shout out if we have time for it. I'm going to try and keep it under like an hour. So if we're starting to cross that threshold, somebody please wave at me or yell at me or throw a rock or something.
So if we don't speak up, just go on forever.
Oh, I hope not. Surely I'd stop at some point. But there's other things you can do with this tool that are super cool and handy. One of the biggest things that I've found that's been useful lately is it's really useful for making textures between models with different topology and UVs that you've done with photogrammetry. If I'm show of hands, who knows UVs? Cool. Quick overview, UVs are like if you take a 3D model and you choose which edges to cut along and unwrap it, almost like making a papercraft thing in reverse, or like deconstructing a shirt into its component pieces, which is how a 3D game engine projects texture information from the texture onto the model in the game engine. That's like the quickest way I think I can explain it. Quick disclaimer as well, if you from a technical background or are very familiar with things like graphics programming, this might end up being a lot of me looking at a program that can do a lot of things you can probably get set up pretty quickly, just with a node-based editor. It's really useful if you do not come from like a technical background like myself. I was originally on a pathway to be a ceramics teacher before I got interested in doing game dev. So it was a hard pivot, and it's been a steep uphill climb learning things. And I found Substance Designer to be a really useful tool for developing a more intuitive understanding of some of the back ends of graphics processes. It's what helped me actually understand the per pixel interactions of the Photoshop blend modes, to give like a quick example. But it's also really good if you've got a lot of things that you need off the ground quick and easy. It's very procedural, and because of the node-based workflow, it's easy to start with something simple and then build it out more once you get to like a stage of visual refinement. So I'm a big fan of it for a lot of steps in the process. I wouldn't consider myself an expert with this tool. So if you come from a 3D background or you're pretty well versed in this tool as well, I put 101 at the beginning, so I might be repeating a lot of stuff. Hopefully there's at least one new thing that I will show off. But if not, then sit confidently and proud in your seat, knowing that you know more than someone in your row.
Yeah. Confident in your knowledge.
Yes. So, general things. This is the last couple slides I'm going to hit before I switch over to the thing. Reference material is super important in anything. General principles of art and design are always going to be useful. This is another tool this is a tool that's been useful for learning composition as well, I've found, because you're working in this limited space and it's focused on repetition and tiling. But if you have an idea of what you're trying to execute, it's a lot easier to make the finished thing look more realistic, more close to what your reference material is, even if that's something like the floors and walls of your local mall that you're trying to translate into something that's kind of almost your local mall. So this is also, I'll talk about a little bit of stuff with trim sheets, because there's a bunch of different ways you can use trim sheets in 3D environment workflows to save on performance and also make your workflows a bit faster. That's going to stray more into like 3D modeling workflows, so I'll try to keep that brief. But basically, some tricks you can do with textures are taking one texture set with a bunch of horizontal strips of tiling materials that only tile horizontally, and then cutting out the UVs that we explained earlier into pieces that only fit into those spaces horizontally, so as to basically cram multiple materials into one. This helps improve performance. I find it to be a very nice way to work. I'm making a lot of stuff in similar look, similar space. You kind of start with a couple models that are around the general scale of things you'll be working with, and then make your trim sheet based off of those UV sizes, and then work backwards. And when you're modeling, then fit things into that space. I'll show that in a little bit more detail, but basically, this material and that material are all the same, just as this one, that one, and that one. They're all the same, all kind of on the same sheet. Cool. Okay, so switching over to Substance Designer, this is not the default layout, I believe. Let me just reset the default layout if I can. Yeah, we'll see. I haven't changed too much with this default layout when you get this program out of the box, which disclaimer on it, if you're like, Adobe, which you should be in some cases. This is one of the few rare cases where you can actually purchase this program and you have it. It is not a subscription-based thing. They have a separate plan that you can do a subscription with that has a couple more of their Substance Suite programs. But Designer, Modeler, and Painter are all available to be purchased on Steam. One-time purchase, you own it for life. They're in the range of like $150 to $200, which is a pretty penny to drop on something that you're maybe not familiar with. But if this is the kind of thing that you find yourself doing a lot of, or you're interested in doing a lot more, I think it's worth the investment in this case, because you get to use it perpetually. It's pretty good. So all of this stuff I've done using basically either these programs or Inkscape or other open source tools, things like that. There's a lot of back and forth that you can do for if you're doing things on the 2D graphics side of things. To switch back over here, I'm going to talk about patterns a little bit. These background patterns that are kind of faded and subtle were things that I made in Substance Designer. So foreshadowing, I'm a big fan of patterns. I'll kind of have this as our landing page while I talk about the layout of things. So you got your Explorer over here. This is your general stack of files that are open. got your library. This is just a library of every single node that exists in this entire program. It's very overwhelming if you're starting out to just look at the entire list of things. You can also access it by hitting the space bar and then typing in what you're looking for, or anytime you drag out from an existing node, you'll be able to do the same thing. A big thing that took me a while to learn when I was first picking this up, if you are dragging out from a node, it will limit the options it shows, basically based on the node that you're using. This program separates things out into grayscale versus RGB inputs and outputs, which are visually distinctified by a gray nub versus an orange nub. There are also others. I'll maybe get into that, but that's basically if you are dragging out from a color thing, and I search something like blur, it'll bring up blur, but it'll also bring up mostly these color options. Whereas if I'm to drag out of here, you see it brings up the grayscale options. So that's a handy dandy thing about navigating. For other parts of the UI, you've got your 3D viewer here and your 2D viewer here. Your 3D viewer will show whatever your textures are sent out to. It'll map your outputs if they work with your 3D renderer to this model. It's not going to show up on this 2D asset that I made because these are things that I made specifically to use as 2D graphics. But your outputs for whichever thing you have selected will also be shown in your 2D view. You double click a node, it'll show you what it looks like in that node. It's super helpful, I've found, to help diagnose when you've done something wrong or understand the progression of like how each operation is affecting your thing. Yeah, and you can, it's also, because it's procedural, non-destructive, that means you can edit anything throughout this process and it will populate those changes forwards, like upstream basically, into the rest of your graph. So I have a bunch of these icons right here that you kind of start a lot of your process out with. A lot of it is usually going to be starting with simple shapes and doing operations on them to modify them, warp them, stretch them, blur them, invert them, things like that, and turn them into visuals that you then use further throughout your graph. So this is an example of a sort of mandala pattern that I've used in a lot of my game design projects, as well as just 2D graphics that I enjoy making. I start sometimes to save time with this font that I have called Ornaments. It's free on dafont.com. It's super handy dandy. It's just a bunch of different, yes.
One more time, repeat that.
Ornaments on Dafont, Dafont. Pull it up, you'll find a bunch of handy dandy things. But if I were interested, let's see here, basically, you got nodes. Okay, where am I looking? Here we are. I have something like this flower icon that I have here. I move to focus on this close to final version of it. If I then do a singular click on this, change it out for, I don't remember what any of these are, but okay, that changes it out for this sort of leaf swirly thing. It then automatically, anywhere that's been used, will replace it with that. Any modifications you make will replicate throughout the rest of the thing. So it's super easy if you are just trying to get a sense of like a visual style for something that you're working on. I find it really helpful for getting just a start on something, or having something that you can then go back and edit later on. Undo that. I'm going to navigate through, I think, and show some 3D stuff. This is kind of an in-between thing. This is a graph that I made for an asset jam, the event that we were talking about earlier. So these graphs are all separate from each other and are saved within packages, and you can use them back and forth between different graphs. So if I wanted to, in this fun, fancy little tile, like decorative tile set that I have here, if I wanted to incorporate that pattern, I can click and drag it in, and anything that I have designated as an output node, which are usually going to be down here at the end, anything with this gray top to it, that doesn't have anything coming out the other end, is going to be an output node that will be exposed if you drag that graph into another graph, or when you export it into another program like Substance Painter. That'll be one of the available things for you to use. You can also expose specific parameters in any program, or to be used in any program. So all of these nodes are, I mentioned earlier, like different, basically like Photoshop operations or things that you can do that you can update locally in this program, or you can choose to expose it, which you'll do by right-clicking or selecting, expose parameters, checking whichever ones you want to have exposed. And then if you double-click on this background, by default, it will show you whichever graph you're in, the specifics of it. You've got like your output size ratio, which you can create, which you can select when you're creating a new graph. You do that up here. Select your pixel ratio. I found this can be used for pixel art, if like environmental backgrounds for pixel art as well, which is another super handy dandy thing. And that'll create a new graph. There are some presets that tend to be useful. You can have an empty one if you're doing some sort of filter or 2D thing. Metallic roughness is the one I tend to use just because it sets you up with your, if you've done 3D game dev before, your like base color, normal map, roughness, metallic, all of those things as default outputs. And if I have something selected as an exposed parameter, if you've done anything with programming, you're probably familiar with this. You can set what type of what data type it is. You can have the visual end of it be customized so that someone seeing it in something in a tool like Substance Painter can adjust it, and you can add a description to explain further what that is affecting. So this is super useful if you're making something like a base of wood material that you want to be used in a couple different places, but you say maybe want to change the color of it, you want to change the grain on the wood, things like that. Let me see here. And I know I have a wood that I saved somewhere in here. Since I'm going through a lot of basically just older projects or current projects that I'm working on, it's a bit of a scavenger hunt trying to remember where I've kept all of these, but I think, let's see here. I think this will have some wood grain as an example. Here we go. So if you're interested in making something like a wood grain to use for like a texture for a model, whether that's going straight into your game engine or you're using it in another tool first, you'll usually start out with a simple shape like something like this, or you'll start out with a tile sampler node. Maybe start one from scratch actually. So when you're starting out, if you have a template like this, it'll have your default inputs to the 3D and the 2D viewer. You got your normal map, roughness. It's got some default values that are just being driven by a uniform color. You can change that however you like. So if we're trying to do a wood grain, for example, you'll either usually start with a shape node, which within that you can choose a square, a disk. You can do gradient versions of them with a gradient from inside to out. There's a bunch of different ones. They're all useful for different use cases, and anything I'm doing here as a demo is going to be pretty quick. But you could spend a lot of like professional material artists you spend like a lot of time building layers and layers and layers on top of a material that you're working on to add that sort of realistic look to it. So you can start with a shape node. Let's see here. Something like this. Yeah, brick is the one. So brick is similar to square, but it's got a gradient to it on the edge that you can drive with the pattern specific slider, something like that. Bring it out into a sampler node. Tile sampler is another, so I'm going to shout out a couple nodes that are super useful, and then when I switch back to the slides, I'll have those all listed out. Those are like the cheat sheet of nodes that are used a lot. This tile sampler node is one of the more powerful nodes in this software. It's used for repeating things on a grid. You can randomize aspects of it. So you can edit your scale however you like, or you can randomize it and then shrink them down per instance. So if I wanted to do something like wood grain, I could, let's see here, increase my X amount, reduce my Y amount, or other way around. Something like this. Stretch it out. Stretch it out like that. I can increase my scale to get them all closer to each other so they're overlapping. And then I can randomize the color in that. I'm scrolling through a bunch of different options in it. This is one of the larger nodes that has a lot more editable things, but you can do this a couple different ways, basically. This will randomize the color for each instance of this input. Most nodes that have something random attached to them will have a randomized, like a random seed that you can input, or you can shuffle until you get something that looks fun. And then a lot of materials tend to be these basic default shapes that you then edit and build upon with things like warp nodes and blend nodes. So if I were to do, or there's a couple different warp nodes. There's warp, directional warp, and multi-directional warp, which all kind of do as they say on the tin. Warp, you have an input and then a gradient input. If I just search for a noise, we'll do this concrete grunge. It will distort the pixels based on this input map. So the lighter a spot of this texture is, the more it gets distorted. You can kind of see as I adjust the intensity on this one, how it affects the output here. So you can soften that with something like a blur node in between. And if you click on these connecting lines, you can add an input in or add a node in between, which is super useful. And when you've got these connections, you can hold shift to reconnect the nodes. If you select two and press X, you can swap them. So that can be useful when you're blending different inputs together to see if it's, to visually see if it's different or not when you're doing that. I'm doing something like this. I'm actually going to switch this up for a Perlin noise. So that'll be a little better. It's going to be a bit more rounded and there will be more contrast, which will give more of the warping of those wood lines that you would see in something like a tree. A little more intensity, and I'm going to scale this down so that it's affecting it in a larger area. And then I go to something like, yeah, it's, once you start getting into it, it becomes, you can make some very fun, very weird visuals with it that, aside from whatever you're working on, can be pretty entertaining. And then you can plug this into something like a gradient node. There's two different ones. Gradient map will basically, the darker something is in this input, it will map to those colors like so. So if I want things that are on the lighter end of this to be a red, and then I want it to sort of like have a limited color palette here. Go down to some yellows and oranges here. It will interpolate basically between those. You can use this gradient node to then get a base color up and running pretty quickly. So if I was going for like a red wavy kind of truffulatry looking material, this would be perfect. I could throw this into Engine and get something visual that I could implies what its function is supposed to be, and then come back and work on it later. But if I'm going for wood grain, I can do a gradient dynamic. And we'll do this just based on this same input. This will basically, whatever you put in for the dynamic input, it can be either a color or black and white, will just automatically from your reference image turn that into a gradient, basically taking the top strip of pixels and turning that into a gradient. So I can do something like a transform 2D node, which is how you move things around. I'll say this is one of the biggest learning curves going from something like Photoshop to a digital program like this. You can't just click and drag things to move them around. Everything that moves has to be moved with a transform node. I find this to be super helpful for me personally because I'm somebody who is very forgetful. And it is very helpful to have a visual record, I find, when I'm working on things of what each operation I've done to a thing was. Otherwise, it can be easy to forget if I don't document like a specific workflow in something like Photoshop. It can be very easy to forget how you get to a certain end result. So I can take, if I want to use, say, this strip here for a gradient just along the side of this same texture, I can rotate it 90 degrees. You can rotate it by any angle. You can also scale it in this node. You can offset it, transform it, and this is a powerful thing about Substance Designer. It just will automatically tile things. This is what makes it so useful for me for repeating patterns. Photoshop and Illustrator have tiling functions and support for things like this. I find it can be kind of finicky sometimes and not super easy to do. If I'm trying to get some sort of ornate pattern slapped onto something quickly, the way that Substance Designer automatically tiles things makes it much easier to work with. So I can go now from this transform node into here, and it will map it to these puts. With that, I'm forgetting the next step here. If I switch over to you can see in this graph that I made, I started with a different shape so that it would have more of a gradient here. And then similar process, warped it based on a noise. In this case, to keep it a little bit more unique, I used another tile generator node, just using dots and of different sizes, placements, and lightnesses, and then blurring that into something similar to like a Perlin noise, but a little bit more different. Warping it, and then here we go, yeah. So I think this one works because it has a lot more inputs in it. It's got more of those shapes horizontally. So when you map that gradient, you get something that on this viewer is pretty high detail, but very quickly gives you this wood grain look. And these kind of knots and bends in it are being driven by the warp node over here. If I were to turn this off, let's check in. It becomes a lot more linear. And if I turn off this other warp node that I've got, you've still got some of this variety going on here because we've got this noise blend on top of it. If you turn off all that, then it's just straight lines again. So by stretching out these horizontal lines and then blending them with a version of it rotated and using this as our gradient input, you can get something like this crazy wood grain texture and then plug that into like a gradient map. Quick and easy. You can change the hue, saturation, all that good stuff on it. You can overlay other things on top of it. And bing, bop, bang, boom, you've got a wood grain trim that you can throw right in there. Yeah. And then this is a messy graph. A lot of these graphs that I'm showing are going to be pretty messy. I will say do as I say, not as I do. A lot of professional graphs will look a lot more organized. Some of them will look just as messy.
As well.
Exactly. There's a pretty broad range. Things that people are proud to show off will usually be pretty organized. But I find this to be, despite how messy it is, more helpful because I can see the connections going on between everything. There is like a what's it called, a portal node that you can send basically without having the connecting lines. Um, and I find having the visual again helpful for remembering what is going from what to what. But this wood grain that I'm using in this graph then is also being used. So it's being used for this upper wood part here. It's also being used for both of these like wood floorboard pieces that I've got here. And that's just being used by blending in, again, more shapes, transforming them, getting a pattern of basically 3 shades of gray for top, middle, bottom of these wood floorboards for this repeating set of 3 colors. Then using my transform node, scale it way down, it will automatically tile, and then I can use that as a gradient using these histogram nodes, which are super useful. Basically, you can drag out, there's a bunch of different ones that are used for different things. Histogram select is the one I use the most. And that one, basically based on its position on the gradient, it will highlight pixels that match up with that. And you can increase the range, increase the contrast, things like that. So this is useful for selecting specific parts of a texture that you've used previously and using that area of it for something down the line. For example, if I pull up handy dandy clouds node, one of my favorite noises to use, everybody's got their favorite, and then I throw that into a histogram select node. If I want to have, say, like some moisture staining on like a material, or if I want to have like some grunge of some sort, I can use one of these histogram nodes, select an area that looks nice. I can finick with the range, contrast, things like that. And I can always get it somewhere that I'm mostly happy with, throw it into a levels node or a curve node, and then adjust it further from there. The more like minor adjustments that you do, the easier it can be to forget where the important slider is in a graph. So if you're starting out with this and I encourage you to, when you use a node for the first time that you haven't used before, just finick with all the sliders and see what each one does, because you might find like this range operation basically gives me the contrast the range and the contrast I can use to get that same effect that levels node would have used. And then I could throw this into a gradient map, or I could throw it into something like a blend node, where I would then blend it on top of one of these, on top of these floorboards. Which I will show real quick here. So if we've got, this is a little down the line, basically those gradients of 3 different shades of gray are being used to mask out different color overlays that I'm doing. So I'm changing the hue with a different node each time. This is also super useful. So if I change this original hue, say suddenly we're like, okay, scrap this color palette, green and orange is not working for us. Can change the hue. You'll probably have to do some further adjustments afterwards, but it will adjust each of the color variants proportionally to it. This is what I tend to use when I'm first getting like a base color of something started on a lot of textures. Will be something like my like clouds noise or something like that, and then throwing that into a blend node with one base color as my background, and then this uniform color node. I wanted to have like a lot of my bronze materials that I use in things will be some sort of darkish yellow, and then bring that out into a hue saturation HSL slider, lighten it up, turn down the saturation on it, and then plug that in. It's looking more like a Minecraft gold right here, but I hope it conveys kind of the idea. I could take something then I'm not quite satisfied, then maybe reduce the range, reduce the contrast on it. Something like this. And then I could do an operation like an invert grayscale, which then flips it. So anything that's the lighter something is in this texture, the more this foreground will be applied onto the background. You don't have a background, it's just going to be applying it onto nothing. And this is where those blending modes come in. They're all the same ones you'd see in Photoshop. So I can use different operations to get different effects. If I want something more subtle, something like an overlay or a screen might be good for this. And you can futz with the opacity to get something a little bit more subtle. This is pretty much the exact same thing that's happening in this material over here. Just with a lot more layering going on. So this is the same brass material that I used in the lamp that I showed just a minute ago. This guy here. It is also set up in a style like similar to a trim sheet layout. I like using it just because it's easy for repeating something across an object. So the UVs on this model are basically sliced up. Load this model where there will be like a cut along this edge here, and then a cut, I believe, around here. You hide them in places where there's little crevices on your models and then you can align the UVs with this overlapping like wrapping trim, and then with the decorative part up here, and then anything else can be this beaded like Moroccan lamp texture here. Yeah.
How are you offering those normal maps?
Normal maps are.
Like, I don't have any intuition on that.
Oh, word. Normal map. This is super useful for normal maps because you can throw any gradient, any object with gradient on it of any sort into just a normal map node, and based on whatever engine you're using, it'll have a different input format. It will convert that basically into an approximation of a normal map. Usually that is just going to be anything that's lighter is more raised up, and anything that's darker in this gray to white range or black to white range is going to be more recessed. And then you can use normal blend nodes that are going to be similar to your normal blend nodes, your standard blend nodes, in that you have your foreground, background, and then your mask input that you can use to blend multiple instances of this. You could also blend these into the same one and then just throw it all into one normal node. If you're doing a lot of real-time things, like if you're using one of the Substance plugins for like Unity or Unreal or something, and you're using those parameters to drive real-time changes to a material, then you'll care a lot more about optimization in your graphs. But for these use cases, you can be repetitive. The only cost or drawback really is the chance you forget which one is the one for a specific operation. But throwing that out then into this normal map, makes it really easy to get something up and running. So Eric, you had mentioned, because you knew I was going to be speaking, you had mentioned interest in like 2D normal maps. I wasn't able to pull anything together for it to show up here, but the concept basically of if you're trying to do a normal map in a 2D game, you can take your character sprite, however that looks, and if you make a version that is kind of has gradients or different shades of gray based on different like shadow levels, basically, if you have it stepped kind of like this, something like this here, where you've got these different shades of gray, if I plug something like this output into a normal map, the more raised the lighter something is in this grayscale image, the more raised it will be in the normal map input. It's going to be a little jank because these are like hard edges. I could do something like a bevel or a distance node that will look crazy at first. And then as you dial it back, you can either bevel it inwards or outwards. And that'll give you, if you're trying to do something like a normal map, that'll give you more of your raised effect. This is going to look a little janky. You can always then throw a blur node on it afterwards to smooth out these artifacts here.
It's awesome.
Yeah, so that premise of like grayscale, you can put on, like if I say I want the underarms to be shadowed or this side of like a box to be shadowed, you can make a grayscale version of your asset, whether it's pixel art, vector art, hand illustrated, things like that. And it will, anything that's darker you throw into here will be represented as being darker, which you can then use that normal map.
Talking.
Yeah. Okay.
There's this training program called LAIGTER Lighter, and
Just
what? Yeah,
Nice.
and what it takes any 2D image you put in, and it
Mhm.
automatically generates a map for it based on some
Hell yeah.
to tweak the parameters. It's what I
Nice.
use for Dice Gun Commando and Dice Tower to generate the normal map lighting.
Okay, word. And that's free as well.
It is free.
Let's go. That's awesome.
It's an amazing tool.
Yeah, hell yeah. Yeah, so this can do a lot of things. It doesn't have to do everything. You can do a lot of things in this if you want to, if you are interested in doing it this way, but it's not essential for every workflow. I'm going to switch back over to the brass if if you haven't noticed, prone to tangents. So I'm jumping around and different topics with this a lot. This brass material that I've got for this lamp starts much like that quick example I was giving. I've got a couple different grunges and noises, and these are all out of the box ones that come in this program. You can also find your own online. Most of these are going to automatically tile, which makes it much easier, but you can also do your own noises with enough time and experience. So I'm blending a couple of these noises together. Thing that I find useful to break up like a tiling issues that you see in a lot of materials. I don't know how well this is going to look because this is made for a singular asset, but if I were to take this output where it is right here and just check how it looks when it's scaled up. So if I'm making something like a grass texture that I'm going to throw on the ground of my whole map, I shrink it down, you see these parts of the texture start to repeat much more prominently. General way to kind of mitigate that can be having different scales of noises overlapping with each other. So if I've got something like this noise that I'm using for most of my texture, but I then plug it into this transform node that I have already here, I could then overlay it with something like, I'm just using the first noises that come to mind right now, but I think there's a gal in it. Yeah. Is this one I'm using already? It is. Well. Run. Do something like this. Rough, dirty grunge. Sure. Blend that. Can also add a histogram node, select, so that I'm only using select parts of this noise. And if I know specifically the areas of my texture that I'm trying to cover up, so like this darker spot was what stood out most in my texture that was repeating, I can set something up that will cover this area more. So right now I can see that this spot is also a little darker. So maybe what I'll do is invert it beforehand. And then from my histogram, something like that. And then I can overlay that on top of this noise. Do any blend. I think that'll work pretty well. And then you'll basically, a lot of what I'm doing is expediting a whole process. It'll give you new problems, and you then just continue layering on more and more noises until you get something that's less contrasty overall. You could also do this by just flat out lowering the contrast on something. It will cause it to stand out much less when it's tiling. Again, it'll still be noticeable, but the more, basically, when you have something that's going to be repeated a lot, it behooves you to have it be very low contrast, so that it's less noticeable when that texture is repeating. It's not going to be, it's very difficult to completely hide whenever you're working with noises and grunges in general, but these things at least help with. Okay. There's some other things that I want to talk about. Switch back over and talk about trim sheets a little bit with this. So I'm switching back into this graph that I was looking in earlier. It's got all of these outputs going on right here. We've got my different wood outputs. I've got this kind of drywall texture, which is just a flat color with a little bit of a purlin noise on top of it. Let's see here. We are. We've got, these are like my two colors. I'm just taking this like dirt noise map, blurring it a little, reduce the contrast, throw it into a gradient map, and then change the hue to get my two colors that I'm using. And this is the same trim sheet that I used in this store interior. You can see it's on the walls here, and then these are the different floors. This carpet is actually a different material because I was working quickly for getting just like visuals up and running, and the only downside with the trim sheet can be if you start adding in new textures and surfaces into a space, you then go back and reconsider, okay, how much space is each thing allotted? The goal when working with trim sheets is usually going to be to try and be able to have the UVs of everything at a consistent scale and as large as you can fit within your UV space. So it's as high resolution as it can be. If you have things that are different like scales to each other, that's how you get situations where you've got this crazy high res brick texture on your walls, and then you've got a big blown up banner or sign that's like pixelated, blurry. You can see every bit of aliasing going on in there. Opening up we'll see how long that takes to load. Very much gambling with my laptop's ability to process things, but I was test driving this earlier today and it was running fine, so fingers crossed. And the way that I have all of these things slotting in together, I've done it very messily in this graph, but you can take something, if I wanted to make a new trim sheet using an assortment of all the different things all the different graphs that I have here, to go into a new one and use a multi-material blend. So this is blend, but on steroids. It's taking all of your general color map inputs that you would use in a material in a 3D game. You can designate how many materials you want to blend, and then based on a color mask that you put into it, it will map out different strips to be, or different parts of it to be different materials. I use this for trim sheets, but you could also use this if you're trying to blend something like some flagstones and then like a concrete or like a grout material that comes up underneath it. I could take something like my tiles that I was showing earlier, which reminds me I didn't get into the fun stuff with those, but we'll circle back to that in just a second. I could take maybe this marble material and take that brass material. And I could plug these in. Now you could do this very tediously, plugging each one into each one, or you can change your wires basically so that it's compacting all of these down. They now use a different color. Anything that matches with what the program recognizes as a material map will automatically connect all of those inputs to those outputs. We can set something up with red background and then blend that. Basically now just building out the mask that will show which section is going to be which material. Again, this is stuff that you could do in Photoshop just as easily. But I find it useful because if I change my mind and I'm like, nah, I really want to change the roughness on the marble, like the renderer in here just isn't showing the reflections how it actually shows up in my game engine. It will automatically populate those changes if I make them in this original graph into this one that I can then output. So it saves me a bunch of time. It also keeps things all in one place. And if I decide like, okay, I'm now deciding to make some larger models in this space that are going to need more square footage of this marble material, I can then change how much of my mask is allotted for the marble material versus something else. So all these blend nodes come with like cropping areas that you can use. I use these a lot for getting these trim edges. That'll oftentimes include taking like a screenshot or outputting like most modeling programs you can send out your UV edges or your UV outlines. I'll use that to know where I want my boundaries to be so that I'm saving as much space as possible. If I plug this in and then set these different materials, so this one is using white. These colors match up. And then plug this, and if I click and drag this out from this combined material output to any of these matching output nodes here, it'll just automatically hook them all up. Then I can always switch back to standard editing mode. And then if I decide like, oh no, I'm going to use something else for my like roughness or whatever, I can change that separately. And then if I say I want this upper part to be marble, I missed part of this brass here. Crop that out. And then, let's see here. You can get something going that looks similar to the other trim sheets that I've been using. And this is finally loaded. Go.
I'm sorry, Sam, I gotta ask, what's a trim sheet?
Trim sheets are the textures that are, these are these kind of textures anywhere king where you see like the one that I was showing with the wood panels earlier, where like there's a bunch of horizontal or in some cases vertical, I guess, strips of different like patterns basically that you then use in your modeling program or your texturing program. Uh, so this like slat wall like shelf that I would hang products on is using this section of the UVs on these. Each of these white outlines is indicating like an edge cut. So I'm selecting each UV shell right now. So that's basically the different strips that I've cut it down into, the different pieces. You can see I extruded this back here, so this looks a little wonky. But you don't see it in game, so it's a problem for later. If I click and drag, I've actually got all of these overlapping on top. So they'll look exactly the same. If I zoom in and I look really closely, you'll see that this same like burl of the wood grain is showing up in each spot. I've got these top two faces or these top two shells mirrored vertically, so it looks a little bit different. If I wanted to have more variety with it, I could always drag it over, and you can see as I move the UVs of this spot, this will kind of move with it. So this is kind of the general process that you can use to texture a lot of things really quickly, get a good enough version of it up and running, and then if anything needs its own unique individual texture set, you can then go back and address that separately.
Do you usually make like a whole sheet for the whole environment? Do you split up objects? Like would the chairs and tables be another trim sheet too?
So it'll usually depend on where you're using them, and sometimes you'll think you know how that's going to go, and then things will change. But I usually try to split up my trims based on if they're going to mostly look okay if they're visually similar. I wouldn't use a lot of the wood trim in here in another store unless I wanted it to look similar to this one that I have here. Um, and it'll also sometimes be determined based on the size of objects you have. So an example of this, I don't know if I have this in this 3D scene. Here we go. I have a different trim that I'm using for the exterior, for the floor of the rest of the entire mall. That's repeating in its own trim set. So, okay, I don't know why it's not showing up over there, but you can see same as in Substance. This is a trim sheet that looks more simple. I'm using this for the floor of the outside mall just because it's such a large scale that if I want the resolution of the textures to match up, I kind of have to use just this for a lot of the uh, for these textures. And then I have this separated out for just this for most of this store. So I like to think of it in by using like if I'm going to use something in a bunch of different places, things that are more general, more versatile, I'll usually try and consolidate those into a trim sheet. Whereas things that are more specific to a given area will maybe be their own trim. Because the goal of trim sheets in general is to cut down how many materials you're using in a space at a time. Because games are real time, you're cutting down on draw calls, which can significantly improve performance. It's not always a complete game changer, but starting out this way is a good way to curb performance problems early. You can always work faster by just using a bunch of different materials, but that can then cause performance issues. Or if you don't know which material, if I'm like, why is this railing using metal 6 brighter instead of whichever metal I want it to be using? It becomes easier to trace down where things are inheriting their look. I have another example of this in this project that I worked on. This is a asset kit that I made for this educational game, like used in basically an immersive history class like experience. Um, so all of these objects here are using the same trim. Um, I did not work on the buildings. That was a speaker that we had actually 1 calendar year ago, last July exactly. That's really funny. Andrew Williams, uh, who made a different trim sheet that I have saved that I can pull up in a second. But for things like the this trim here on the end, I've got, this is to just kind of show off the different maps that are being used. You've got, these are all repeating horizontally, but just for showing it, I've got the base color map, the normal map, and then this is a patch map that basically is cramming the roughness map, the ambient occlusion, metallic maps, all into different RG and B channels of its own texture, which makes it look really crazy. But it's a really good way to, again, down on how many drop calls you've got in the game. Because instead of calling for 3 unique grayscale textures, you can just call for the one color texture and then use the different RGB alpha channels of that texture for your different maps. I can show what that looks like in Substance Designer, but this is primarily used for like these lighter props, these smaller ones that are used all throughout the map. And then this darker wood and the canvas are actually part of a different trim sheet that was pre-existing. So I tried to use that existing trim sheet for as much as I could as possible. I'll see this in the background. Let's see here. Again, we'll see if I'm gambling with my computer here. Yeah, does that answer the question somewhat? Or I yeah, if I'm using it in a different context that where it needs to look different, or it's just not going to be actually that much of a performance improvement. Like if I'm using just the dark wood strip of this trim sheet somewhere else, but then I'm like, okay, well, only the dark wood works. Now I have to make like a floor laminate and then like a new marble texture and a different type of metal or things like that. I've got maybe some funky bowling alley pattern carpet. Then at that point, it probably just makes sense to make a new trim sheet for that different location. And that's, I think, a general practice that most like larger scale 3D games will abide by to some degree. It's useful as well, I find, because with modern game engines, this isn't always the case, but it's usually cheaper to have a couple more polygons on a model that you're using as opposed to a couple more materials on a model that you're using. So I've added into the mesh for this like exterior wall of the store. I've got these strips of polygons that are using my UV editor are cut to be these different little strips that I now have hidden down in the metal section all the way down at the bottom, as opposed to having a different metal material that I'm using. So I'll usually start by modeling out a couple of the things that I know I'm going to have, some of the most prominent pieces in an environment, and then using that as a scale reference for a trim sheet, and then going with that until I need to adjust it otherwise, which is why the procedural side of Substance is super useful.
So in the game engine or in your example here, are they still procedural in situ here, or are they like rasterized to like
Yeah, so these are rasterized right here, right now.
Okay.
So this is just the texture. If I swap this out to a picture of my face, it's going to show up like a picture of my face with wherever these UV maps overlap with it. But you can set up your graphs in Substance to automatically export whenever you make a change in there. So it's actually probably happening the entire time I was doing the Mortimer trim. I'm exporting these out. If I right click any of these graphs, I can go to export outputs, and any output nodes that exist in the graph, you can choose to export it. You can choose color space, all that good stuff, where you're exporting it. You can change your format, things like that. And then this checkbox, yeah, you can check it to automatically export when your outputs change. So if I changed the color of this texture here, like I did for the hue earlier, change it to a crazy green, go back in here, voila. I'm not going to be saving any of these changes.
What am I looking at right now?
Right now, you're looking at a bunch of.
What? No, back up. What program is it?
This is, oh, thank you. This is Maya. So this is Autodesk Maya.
Okay. I saw Maya go by at one point.
Yes.
So Maya knows that I'm sorry, the other
All good.
knows the designer exists, or
No, it's actually, so the material that I'm using in
it's
Maya.
popping on a file.
Yeah.
Push that button,
Uh-huh.
and Maya knows to update it. Great.
Yes.
I'm on board now.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Thank you.
Pages. I'm on.
Hell yeah.
Same one.
Go team. Yeah, so this
Eric might have been doing the same thing I was doing. Like that.
all good. All good. No, that's good to highlight. Thank you.
Do you have the ability to take a material and export it as something akin to a material shader that could be used in an engine instead of just like rasterized to a texture and then used that way?
I know that Substance has like a plugin for the big ones like Unreal and Unity that works kind of, sort of, mostly. I used it a little bit in my college senior capstone project, and we eventually abandoned it because it was a little bit more finicky than just plopping out the textures. I think there is a way to do it. The like Substance branded export that you get, the Substance branded like file type that you can plop all these out of is an SBSAR file, Substance archive file, and that's basically it contains like all of the node operations that are going on. I don't know if that could be cracked open in like a, if you could like, I don't know what the code looks like inside for that.
I can't imagine they make it easy.
Can't imagine they make it easy, but I also imagine there are a solid amount of people advocating for usability in some capacity. So I assume there is some way to export this out. I'm not actually sure.
Depends on the intermediate formats,
Yeah,
which I know Substance has been trying to get everyone on the same page and stuff like that.
yeah,
But you know, the program has features. You can't put all the features in file format, so there's
Yeah.
probably some limitation if the format,
Yeah.
what is.
yeah.
I've sure dealt with that in the past for other kind of things similar to this. And it comes down to why can't we all just get along?
Right, right. Well, there's the, yeah. Well, everybody's trying to invent their solution to all the problems, giving us more. Yeah,
So your square pegs don't fit into mine.
exactly. I'm actually going to look into that after this because I'm curious if that's the case. Thank you. Yeah, I'm cracking open Substance Painter right now to just show what that can look like when you're sending something from Substance Designer into Substance Painter and making use of it. But I'm kind of spitballing otherwise if people have specific questions.
For the like the node graph, is there like version control, or is there a way to like, work with team members on materials?
You could, yeah. I mean, this could work with like any version control software. I think I haven't had need to because I've usually been the only person on a team that's working with these materials. But if I were blessed to have another person who's also into Substance Designer on a team, this could totally be something that's shared that way. That would probably influence how you have the different packages ordered.
For what your graphs like, I mean, what your
Right.
graphs like, and you were saying, well, yeah, this works for me. That's where I found out where somebody comes in with a ruler and bangs me on my making two-phase thing.
Right.
All these have to be in a certain way, and they all fit
Hmm.
because two
Yeah.
other people need to be able to open one of mine
Right.
and understand what's going on.
Uh-huh. Yeah. A lot of this is unstandardized because I've been using this usually as the only person on a team that knows it. And it's also been very much a learning tool for me. So I'm often making minor changes to approaches in different things. That's why like a bunch of similar operations can be done with like 10 different nodes.
I was just gonna say, do you find a workflow in your head, just from your examples? It seemed like very often you're putting in more nodes
Hmm.
to accomplish things, where some of the nodes you're dealing with might have parameters that could have done the exact same thing.
Yes.
But in a way, it's fun to do it with node, because then you can see the flow a little bit quicker than
Uh-huh.
scrolling through the 500
Yeah.
parameters in just that node.
Yeah. On the legibility side, that's usually how I end up doing things because it, like I was saying earlier, helps me keep track of each step of the process. But if I were working with someone else on a team, you would want to have probably a agreed upon list of like, okay, we're not using blur, we're using HQ's blur grayscale, we're using slope blur. We're like, these are the nodes that we're using that we agree upon. And like a layout order of operations of, because there are different ways you can approach making like your base colors as well. Like a lot of people will, if you're doing a more detailed, more like textured surface, we'll say to start out with making your entire like grayscale, like your height map basically, and then to apply color to it. Other people will say start by just blending color on top in different layers using different grunges, like how I made the brass material. So there's a lot of back and forth.
So my next question is, after really old, I already explained this. So can you go in and make your own node? Can you go take this whole thing or a subset of this, make it into a box with a couple inputs and outputs, and say, here, I'm gonna share this with my team.
Yes,
Okay, great.
that's where Painter comes along. Um, So this is Substance Painter. This is a whole nother beast to get into. If I open up something like,
Does it cost more money?
yeah, this also costs money. I don't know if this costs more money than Designer. It probably costs the same amount of money, or like a $25 difference. It all costs money.
Sorry, I was making sure.
It's all good.
Based on Steam, looks like 3D Printer 2026 is $27, whereas 3D Modeler is 150, and Simpsons 3D Designer is $200. But not all of those are likely to be the right thing, as Eric pointed out.
Word.
Expensive mistake.
I mean, only for free.
Yeah, yeah. Like it's an investment.
It's like,
Yeah.
Or
200 is
just
more
like
than
that.
I spent. I think Designer was like 150 to 175 when I purchased it.
So 25 bucks is too much.
25.
Yeah, yeah. It's such a stark contrast you got. But yeah, if you're like doing things like this already, I cannot recommend it enough as a useful tool for getting better at like making a faster workflow with things and learning more along the way. So Gap's question was about can you basically make your own nodes or send these out as their own things? Short answer, yes. There are two different ways, kind of. You can either, if you are versed in programming, you can like program your own nodes. I don't know how to do that, but I assume if you know programming, it's going to be similar, some similar graphics language.
There's Linky when we need it.
Yeah, what the heck?
For you and me.
Uh-huh. Uh, or you can, when you export it as that SPSAR file, any exposed parameters will be sent out, and you can then import that. Let's see here.
I would assume the programming is just similar to what you do in something like Godot, where you're programming a custom node and then you have that node available and it's
Yeah,
custom.
yeah, that would be my assumption. Obviously, like I have not done this before, so I'm assuming it's straightforward. I'm sure there's some proprietary roadblock that makes it a little bit more finicky or something.
I
But
think you've been doing is essentially what visual programming does.
Yeah.
It's
mhm.
wrapped all into.
Yeah, so that's been like really useful for like learning the specific operations. I've been able to do the tiniest bit of graphics stuff on the Playdate, in part because of my experience working with this, in part because there are awesome people in this community that are very willing to help out. So this is an example of um, an asset that I sent out of Substance Paint or Substance Designer into Substance Painter. This is a filter, and I can import a resource at any point. I could just import any texture, or I could import a Substance archive. I don't know where I would have exported it to. I'll give it like 30 seconds to dig for it, and if I can't find it, I'll just explain it verbally. It's probably in here. Here we go. So I'll actually open that in Designer in just a second. This SPSAR file is an exported version of one of my graphs. So this quantized graph is one that I have as like one of my tools that I use all over the dang place. And this is going to be one of the most simple nodes, one of the most simple graphs. You got your input, which is just whatever your texture or whatever your image is, or input, quantize. I've got all of the parameters for this feature exposed so they can be edited, and then my output. And again, if I click on the background, quantize basically, I don't know if I'm preaching to the choir here on this, but it's basically anything within a certain color range will ramp to one of a set number of colors. So if I take something like clouds node and plug that in there, there we go. It's that sort of like stepped style, like cell shaded kind of look that you see that a lot of games tend to use when they're going for more stylized looks, to use the like gamer version of stylized.
So I'm sort of getting into some subset color.
Yeah.
Photoshop would have to be like posterization.
Yes. Yeah. Posterize or ramp or step are other names for a similar function. But I can then export that as its substance archive, and then it will automatically read it as a filter. In some cases, you'll designate this, like if I'm just importing a random image, I'll throw that in and then designate, I'm going to use this as a texture or an alpha if it's a black and white like stamp image. I'll import that, and then I can use that in something like Substance Painter where I'm selecting a filter, and I can look for it in here. I can just type it in quantize. We'll take something like a grunge noise that's being applied to something that's by default a lot more smooth, and then sharpening it into those different steps, which is something I've used for a lot of these different characters for this game, Grapejuice City coming someday, to get shading on them using features that Painter has baked into it, a lot quicker, because this filter just for some reason doesn't exist in Substance Painter. So you can fill needs like that, or if this is an example of like the wood material that I was talking about earlier. I'm just gonna this is gonna look crazy on him. Why is it masking out separately? I don't know why that's unique specifically, but this will have this wood by default, and it's got some normal information coming from the existing textures on it. Pay no mind to that. But these are all parameters that I have exposed from Substance Designer. So I can randomize the seed, and that you can see is kind of tweaking the wood grain on there. Can use a custom wood color if I want. Change that around however I like. And change saturation, color variation, roughness, like how reflective it is, things like this. These are all parameters and sliders that are going on there. Yeah. So that's an example of how you would use it in a broader pipeline. If you have multiple people that are working in texturing programs or whatever, you can send out some of these to your team.
Can you talk about what your options are for animated textures?
Yeah. There is. I haven't done too much of it in Designer, but there are.
I'm also curious how that works for them.
Yeah. I haven't done too much with like animated textures uniquely, like in something like Designer. I can go through most of the steps, but I won't be able to get it up to a point where I'll have a cool animation of something playing. But to go back to my example one, it's a little bit more sparse. We'll get rid of all this. If I double click, I believe it's in. Let's see. If I get something to work with, say I want the disorder to alternate on this. This is one of the pre-built parameters. All of these grunges are also their own substance arc, like SPSAR files. I can expose this as a, or wait, no. Open this bad boy, input value. I haven't worked with this too much, but now you can, I don't know, that's if you're setting up like a variable that you're using across a bunch of different nodes. So like if I want the disorder of multiple noises to be the same, or if I want something to change proportionally with something else, how you would do it.
Are you basically setting it up to like export as a sprite sheet, or is there some other way? Like, how do you go from animating in Designer to having an animated texture in Engine?
What do you mean by animate? Do you mean like lava that's moving, or do you mean like?
Sure, that would be like probably the most obvious example I could think of is like animated water texture,
Right?
Very basic, like kind of low poly sort of thing.
Answer a little bit of that. It's really not any different than how you do 2D. So if you think of a trim sheet like a sprite sheet, you could have multiple frames you export out. It'd be like a flip book, right? So you could do that. If you want like lava that's water that's flowing, you can do in your material settings in the engine. You can animate offsets.
Yeah, you can scroll the
Yeah. So just the normal tricks,
Yes.
basically. I certainly can't speak to the capacity here, but it sounds like it's starting to get into shader territory that you were sort of talking about before, which is dependent on
Yeah, that's kind of what I was wondering is like how much of this is supporting doing stuff with shaders and like scrolling UVs once you get in Engine versus like setting up sprite sheets and stuff, or is there like options that design?
Yeah, I haven't worked a ton with it myself, so I don't know actually how much like overlap there is, how easily you can get something out in animating, but I have seen it done on like cool fancy ArtStation posts. Check out my cool roiling ball of tentacles with eyes that are appearing and disappearing. I don't know if that's done specifically in Designer or if they're doing that in a specific renderer, like they're maybe using Marmoset or Substance Stager or some other program.
I would assume if you're exporting anything that's a texture, the texture itself is not what's animating, that's being handled by whatever's consuming the texture.
Yeah, so it would have to be something that is able to read like your substance archive file, I assume, and can mess with those parameters. So that then ties back to I don't actually know.
Fair enough.
Open how much of a black box that is. What I was trying to get to with this is there's one of the default like variables you can access is like a time variable, similar to if you're doing it in like a 2D shader. That then I know you can use to drive different parameters in your graph here. I just don't remember with that default one like where that is in this graph.
So I've never used Substance specifically, but I use Material Maker, which is a open source clone of Substance. And I have experimented a little bit with
you can like export Godot shaders from that, which
Okay.
will basically keep, so instead of rendering, instead of rasterizing the materials, you actually have a shader, and it's
Yeah.
not perfect export, but you can plug it into your program, and then the uniform variables are exposed, so you can do things like if you have a uniform variable that drives animation in the material, you can actually drive that through the shader and do it live for the game. So,
All right.
I would assume that probably some kind of like similar thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
I'm-
they'll eventually basically taking a shader and run to a texture, so you have to keep the shader and convert it to whatever shader language you're intending it for. You should be able to do it.
Right. Yeah, I would assume there is a way to do it, but I'm gonna look into that afterwards, and I'll post things in the Game Dev meeting Discord channel about it. For what
Game should have animated textures.
That's what I'm saying. Oh, that's
Blinking eyes on your.
give me the glorpy eyeballs. Well, that's the thing. Anytime you see those crazy,
Adding a lot of stuff.
mostly in the performance side of things,
Yeah. Board games too. Why not?
you know, yeah. I feel like we're, yeah.
I heard you to look up Rock just cry.
I feel like we're in a pretty good stopping point territory here, but I'm happy if anybody has any closing questions, final thoughts, things like that. Yes.
How sorry, Francis. How much time, like every percent time, do you think you spend in design here versus other aspects of your workflow?
Word. It'll depend basically on how much environment assets I'm working on, but if it's like, I'd say for this mall space that I was working on, I would say it was maybe like 45% of the time, 30 to 45% of the time in designer. Like not a disproportionate amount, but a decent chunk of time working in substance designer versus in my modeling program or in the game engine itself. Maybe even a little bit less, because a lot of this stuff is really quick slapdash. Um, yeah, Toshiya.
So if one were to like try to learn this stuff, what's a good start project to work on?
That is a perfect question and a perfect segue into wrapping this up. Bricks. Bricks are super easy.
Shill to me.
Bricks are super easy to learn, and then you can get fancier with it. You can do really quick, simple bricks, and you can mess with those color variety things. I forgot to talk about flood fills. This is one of the coolest nodes. You can do a bunch of randomizing stuff with it in more detail. It's awesome. Bricks are really good. You can get something quick and easy. I literally, for this, just used, like, with this gradient editor, you can color pick a gradient and just click and drag, and it'll roughly map that to what you've got there. So I literally, with this, just took one of my reference images, not this one specifically, but one of my reference images where I took it pretty straight on and just until you get something that looks good enough. I'll make it look better when we need to worry about people looking really close at the bricks. But yeah, I think anything that's like super repetitive and relatively simple geometric shapes. So like bricks or tiles are really solid. Yeah. You can add as much detail in it as you want. So the thing I breezed over with this, these are a bunch of different pattern inputs that I'm using in a tile sampler, random selections. If you've played the New York Times game, I forget the name of it, but the one where there's like the sets of tile images and you're trying to jump from one to another and you got different elements of it, basically using that as reference for this, where I've got these different repeating variants plugging into different tile samplers and then overlapping that. Got more of these, and then it blends all together into a bunch of unique variants. So you can start to ramp up like difficulty with things like that, or you can start to ramp up difficulty with like trying to replicate things in higher detail. Again, visual reference is going to be a game changer for anything if you're looking at how the cracks form or how that metal part sits in line with the tile part of it, or where the wear is on the bricks in different areas. You can get as granular or as loose with it as you want. I think I got maybe half of those nodes. Further reading. These are good places to learn if you're interested in this kind of thing. This guy is crazy. He's got a very like YouTuber content guy aura to him, but is genuinely one of the most comprehensive and helpful channels I found for understanding like the broader use cases for specific nodes or how to solve general recurring problems in some pretty effective ways. Um, a lot of clickbait thumbnails, but they're all really quite.
That's why YouTube just works.
Yeah. Go ahead, player hate the game or whatever. And then Sydney Saphira is one that I only found like a month or two ago. Far, far smaller like presence, but honestly just as concise and helpful, and a little bit more fun. There is a slight personality factor to it. And then any of the Adobe like first steps programs are going to be good for just getting probably a more structured lay of the land than the kind of bouncing around trip that I gave. Yeah. If you have more questions about it, if you're interested in learning more about it, let me know like personally at Scrimbus with a K, Skrimbus. Need to talk shop.
Are you in
Otherwise,
the IGDA Discord?
what's that?
Bring in the IGDA Discord.
I am in the IGDA Discord. If you go to the announcements channel for this month, but not the last couple months, thank you, Trent, shout out. You'll find me. You can message me.
You basically run the show.
She's like
Eh.
Discord Solid.
See, I believe that is my official title. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Oh. Cool. Let's clap. And then let's go get. What was it, guys? I missed the whole thing.
Making it a reality. Constraint I have to not purchase this.
Yeah.
Guest speakers, everybody's.
Right. Oh my gosh. I can only imagine. I wish I would have seen it. To our friends on the stream, thank you so much. Have a good night.